What is up, guys? So today I'm going to show you how I edit my videos and the process that I use. So first of all, what I do is I open a notepad document, just a blank one like this, and this is where I'm going to write my timestamps down. So as you can see, these are all the timestamps from my last video. So basically what this means is you open your footage and deafen everyone. So open your footage and you can see here 587 is the file name, 587. So on this video I want it from 30 seconds to 40 seconds, so that's like from back there to wherever that was, 40 seconds, and you write that down. Then what you do is you go through all your footage and you write down all the cuts that you want. It's simple as that. I find that the easiest way. I find it easier than putting the footage straight into your editing program and doing it there. It just seems to be a lot quicker for me. Okay, so once that's done, you're going to open up your editing suite. So I use Adobe After Effects CC. A lot of people use Sony Vegas or Final Cut or Premiere or GoPro Studio. They all do pretty much the same thing, but this is just going to be for CC. So once we open up here, this is what the project looks like. So at the moment I've just got my resolution set to quarter, just because the 2.7K footage slows my PC down quite a bit. So once you've imported your footage over here, you're going to bring it onto your timeline and you're going to start cutting it according to your timestamps. So in After Effects, well, first of all, this is not going to be much of an After Effects tutorial. This is just going to show you the process I use. So once you've dragged your footage onto the timeline, you're going to cut the sections that you want. So that's these pale sections over here. And then what I suggest is put that together and then render out a very low quality version, so low resolution for small file size. And then you're going to go through that footage and check it. So this one I have here, render 1, is basically what that is, but I think this one has got some effects on it already. So as you can see, that's basically how it is. No music or anything. I think there's some effects on here. Yeah, so I had my effect on there to see what it would look like. And then once that's done, you want to open your notepad again and take down timestamps from this video to show, so you can see where you need to cut further, and then come back into your editing program and keep cutting until you've got it to where you want. So for this video, I had a song that I wanted to use, which was approximately 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So I needed my footage and effects to fit into that time frame. So if you've got a song you want to use, or two songs, trim your footage to fit your song length, excluding your outros. So in my project, I have a closing sequence and a intro video already set up. So that's this section here. So this I made previously and rendered it out as a video that I put at the beginning of each of my videos. And at the end I have a pre-comp, which is like a folder inside the main project. So if we open that, you'll see that this is the background image, which has got the moving artifacts and the text. And then what I do is I just take my video from the previous vlog or video that I did and drop it in here. And then these are the keyframes that I copy over and put onto that section. So cut it however you want it, and then add the keyframes and you're done. And that carries over to here. So once that's done, I'm going to talk about your GoPro footage and the color correction that I use when I make a video, because the footage that comes out of the GoPro Hero 3 Black is not very good, the raw that the camera picks up. So this is 100%. So I'm going to show you this is my color corrected version, which looks pretty decent, but I'm going to show you what the raw footage looks like that comes out of the camera as it collects it. So I'll talk about this blur layer later. Okay, so basically I have a adjustment layer, which is a layer, it's like a transparent layer that you apply effects to. You don't apply them directly to other layers. So anything below this layer will affect the footage and effects and whatever else you have below this layer. So what I did was I set up my color settings to how I wanted it, and then each time I have a project I just put everything below my color settings layer and it's all done already, so I don't have to faff around fixing colors each time I make a video. So I'm going to show you what the raw GoPro footage looks like, and then I'll show you what my color correction looks like. So this is raw GoPro, which is, you can see, is very dull. It's got quite a lot of yellow tinge to it. The grass is overly yellow, the road is a slightly green, the blacks are very grey, so there's not much contrast to this. So let's turn my color back on. So you can see there's quite a big difference. There's a lot more detail in the color, especially the blacks. The blacks of the bushes are a lot deeper and a lot sharper, whereas the raw footage is very washed out. You can also see that my settings have taken a lot of the yellow out of the raw file as well, so it looks a bit more natural. So what I used here in After Effects is a effect called auto color, and what that does, you still need to adjust it. So what that does is it fixes the color range throughout the spectrum. So it fixes your hue and saturation, fixes your levels, your curves, your white balance. So it basically does a general fix for your footage for you, but you can still play around with these settings. So what I usually do is play with the black and white clips. So black will make it darker and white will make it lighter, but now you can see the sky is quite washed out. These are extreme values that you wouldn't really use. So I have mine set to 1:1, which gives a good middle ground of how you want the footage to look. So yeah, auto color, I'll show you how to correct without these settings, because a lot of programs probably won't have this. So quickly I'm going to go on to sharpening. So I use the unsharp mask, and what this does is it basically brings out a bit more detail in the scene. So I have it set to a quite low amount here, because you don't want to go too hectic with your filters. You don't want them to be too obvious. So I want this scene to look quite natural, like that's exactly how the camera shot it, without the effects being too obvious. So what sharpening does is it basically, like it says, sharpens up the image. It brings out a little bit more contrast, and it brings out the finer details and things. So like on the top of my clutch cap here, the Brembo logo, you might be able to see a slight change in the quality there. So I have it set to quite a moderate setting. I'm going to boost it up quite a bit so you can see the difference that it makes. So let's put it quite high, it's like 9. So we turn that off. There you can see big difference. So it's adding a bit more contrast to everything as well. So there you can see especially the whites on the dials, the shine on the handlebars, along the rim of the windscreen there. Another place it's very noticeable is on the grain of the road and the pebbles on the side of the road. So you can see everything's quite smooth and dull without it. There's more definition in the lines. If you overdo the sharpening, you can get a bit of haze or halos around certain objects. Like if you look at the top of the mountain there, you'll see it has like a slight haze about 10 pixels in from the top of the mountain, which is not really what you want. So the key to applying effects to your footage is that you don't want to do it on one scene, so you don't want to make this scene look good. So what you do is you apply it to this, and then you go further ahead, say about here, so where there's a lot of contrast. So the ground is very light, the sky is very light, and you can see here that this is quite black. It's a bit too black for my liking. So if we turn that down a bit, or if we turn it off, you can see it's fixing up a bit of the trees, and that's the raw GoPro, and then that's the auto color. Yeah, so it's back to my settings. You can see it makes quite a big difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take auto color off, and I'm going to show you how to fix this with just basic settings. So first of all, you want to have your footage selected that you're going to work on. No, sorry, not your footage. Well, actually, yes, your footage, depending on what program you're on, but I'm going to work on my color settings layer. So this would just be your normal footage layer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to color correction, and we're going to play around with some brightness and contrast. So brightness we can push up very slightly, and contrast push up a bit. So let's turn that off. So that's a little bit better. Maybe take the brightness down to 10. Okay, so that's not bad. And let's just check out another scene. Here we go. See, that's a little bit better. So the cloud is washing out a little bit. Contrast, let's make that 10 as well. Brightness, let's make that 5. There we go, so that's a little bit better. Now we want to clean up a bit of the yellow, so what we're going to do is we're going to go Effect, Color Correction, and we're going to add a photo filter. So the default filter is a warming filter, which is definitely not what you want. You want to take out a bit more of the yellow, so you'll be able to see it better around about here. Let's try here. Okay, so to take out yellow, we are going to add blue. So yellow and blue makes green, obviously, if you know your color theory at all. So adding blue to this will make the greens greener, the sky bluer, the road less green, because there's a lot of green tinge on this road. So what we're going to do is we're going to go add a cooling filter. So then we want, whoops, turn it on. There we go. So you can see it's a bit too blue there. So if we take this down to say 15, and let's check, you can see a lot of the yellow, especially on the road, is gone. The greens look nice and green there. So you can see that's already made a big difference, just adding a cooling filter. If you don't have a photo filter option, what you could also do is, if you can make shapes in your editing program, just make a shape, change the full color. So we're going to make it that kind of blue. Don't know how well this is going to work. Let's put it about there. And then on this color layer, we are going to change the opacity. So this probably won't work that well, to about maybe there. And then we're going to change the blending mode to try and multiply. So that's a bit too dark. Let's bring the opacity down more. So there, that's a little bit better. Still a little bit too dark for my liking. Let's try 8. There we go, a little bit better already. So even with just adding a blue layer and changing the opacity in the blending mode, it makes a difference to bringing out the yellow from that scene. So let's delete that, and then we're going to go back to our color settings layer and turn our photo filter back on. Okay, so then you've got your brightness, your contrast, your photo filter. Then what we can also do is we can go Effect, Color Correction, and we're going to go change the curves, curves is a slightly more advanced technique, so this, I don't know the full best explanation, but this graph affects various values. So normally you want to make a very slight S curve. So normally towards the bottom of the graph affects the darker areas, so your shadows, and the top affects the highlights. So it's kind of like brightness and contrast, but a bit more specialized. So there's the curves. You can see we got a bit more darkness into there. So there's plenty of things you can play around with to make your video look a lot better than what it comes out the camera like. Okay, so if we just take all of these and we, what am I doing? This is the easier way. Turn off our color settings layer. We can see the difference. Way better. So that's a basic introduction on how to color correct your footage very simply for very good results. The best thing to do is just play around with your settings and what you can do in your program, and save it and just keep tweaking it until you've got what you want. Okay, so then I'll just quickly show you the transition I used in this video, which is this effect here. See if I can render it. It's probably going to die. Okay, let's put it at 1/4 resolution. There we go. Okay, so that was at a 1/4 resolution. That's why it looks so bad. So this effect is called Twitch effect. It's a plugin for After Effects from Video Copilot. If we go to Effect, Video Copilot, Twitch, and you can see here the Twitch effect is applied to this adjustment layer. So if we go to Animation, Apply Animation Preset, in the Twitch folder in your presets for After Effects, there's a bunch of effects that you can play around with. I used bad distortion here. And then if you go to the properties of the layer, if you press U on your keyboard for After Effects, it brings up all the settings for this effect, and you can keyframe whatever settings you want. So this is the footage, and this is the next piece of footage that I want, and you basically lay the effect between the transition here. So the effect starts working while this footage is playing, and then at the point of the highest amount of the effect taking place, the next footage is already loaded, and by the time this effect ends, you're in the next scene. So the transition is quite nice and smooth, not that noticeable. Okay, so there's plenty of effects to play around with. They're a little bit better than just using the normal fades, but it's up to you on what you want to do. So that is basically my process for editing my videos. If I have the time to make a nice video like this, I also spend time making an intro. So this was basically a bar. Let's put this on full. So this was some shape layers that I made, shoot onto screen, move, and then reveal text that I typed up in there. And these text layers have various effects on them that I added, and masks as well, which was a bit of a mission. And then it wipes it away and the video starts. So yeah, once you play around with your footage or your editing software and what you can do with it, you can start experimenting with better ways of doing transitions and effects, etc. So yeah, now we're going to render. So what I use to render is Adobe Media Encoder. It's a little bit better than rendering straight from After Effects, because there's a bit more flexibility with Media Encoder than there is with After Effects, and the new CC render settings are a little bit funny. I don't really like them. I preferred CS6. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the main comp into Media Encoder, and it's going to make a dynamic link to my project. So here it's linking, Now I'm about to change the settings, which I'll show you now. Takes a little while. Okay, so now it's going to give me a preview of my project, which is there, and we're going to go say here to see what it looks like. Oh, not a very good spot. Here, a little bit back. Okay, so now we're going to render, and okay, here's a good spot. So we can see the quality is pretty good. We want our format to be H.264, which is basically what all videos are encoded to. What you should be using is H.264. There's various other settings you can use here, but unless you want to try something else, there's no point in not using that. Okay, so video, we are going to go and change the level of basically the encoding parameters. What I normally do is untick that, and I set this to the highest, 5.2, and then we're going to render at maximum depth. And then the bitrate encoding, these are different passes. So CBR is the low pass, VBR is a 1 pass, VBR2 2 pass. So this is basically going to take very long. So short, small file size, medium file size, very long render, big file size. So if we do VBR2 pass, and then we're going to use maximum render quality. So the file at the moment is only 297 megs, which is really not that bad for a 4-minute video. But the target bitrate is quite low, so I normally put it at about 20, and the maximum bitrate I put at 25. So you can see my file size has now jumped up to 585 megs, which is still not that bad, but for a longer video, 10 or 15-minute video, this will be over a gig easily. So depending on your internet connection and how much data you have, that might be an issue. It's not an issue for me. I have uncapped data, so I make my files as big as they can be. Okay, so once that's done, you're just going to click OK, and then you're going to change your destination to where this is going to render, and you're going to click play, which will render out your video. So that's basically it. That is my process from start to finish. I hope that's helped somebody in some way. I know this is a very long video, but I thought I would share some of my information that I use for when I set up videos. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I will try and answer them as best I can. If anyone wants a basic overview tutorial of how to use After Effects, I can do that as well. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will check you on the next video. Cheers guys.